The winemaker actually can test the sugar level in each grape variety and see what the Brix is, B-R-I-X. That word is the degree of sugar in the grape juice. When the wine production process starts, yeast is added to the grape juice. The yeast eats the sugar. It produces alcohol and carbon dioxide. That's the basic chemistry of winemaking. But it's really important to the winemaker to know the level of Brix because it's a direct correlation with wine. But a lot of people don't know that all grape juice is white, whether it comes from a white grape or a red grape. So when the white grapes are pressed, that juice is put straight into a tank and fermentation is started. But a lot of people say, well, how do you make red wine then? You have to ferment it on the red grape skins, and that's where all the color comes from, and the tannins, part of the structure of wine.
All right, so after fermentation, wines aren't ready to go into bottle. They actually have to mature. A lot of things change during that period of time, and wines can be aged either in our stainless steel tanks or in barrel. In fact, most of the reds here at Dark Horse are aged in barrel, and some of the Chardonnay as well. The aging in barrel actually changes a lot about the flavors and the expression of that wine once it finishes. And when you age a wine in tank, you maintain the freshness and the fruitiness of the wine that was created during vintage. And so we make those decisions to sort of direct and control style as a winemaker. And once the wines are aged, we then start the process of blending. The process of blending is probably my favorite part of the winemaking process. You get to play around with all of the individual lots and all of the individual barrels and be as sort of fine as you want to be about the final wine that you're producing. Now, sometimes we make Pinot Grigio, and that's a single varietal, and maybe I have 1 tank or 2 tanks of that. And so the blending process is very easy. But sometimes when we're producing our high-end reds, for example, we taste every barrel that we have in our cellar and blend them in different combinations in order to achieve the exact final product that we're looking for, the final product that represents either our brand or the tier of wine that it's actually in. So after we've decided on a blend, the next step is to get the wine into a place where once we put it into bottle, it's going to stay stable. And what we don't want to happen is for yeasts to re-ferment in the bottle, or for bacteria to grow in the bottle, or for tartrates to come out. Now, none of these things are actually dangerous to the consumer. What they do is they change the appearance and often reduce the sort of the appearance of quality in those wines. And so we have to take several steps in order to prevent stuff from happening in the bottle that we don't want. So one of those steps is to cold stabilize, and you'll see the ice on the tank sometimes when you go to wineries. So you're actually chilling the wine down to force the wine crystals out of solution. And that way that they happen in the tank as opposed to happening in the bottle. The next one is actually heat stability. So there are proteins that are naturally present in the wine. They come in from the grapes, and we actually have to remove them at the perfect amount so that they don't form a haze in the bottle later. I know we get some beers and some ciders sometimes that are hazy, but the acceptance for hazy wines hasn't really come yet. And so we use products like bentonite, which is a natural clay product, and we add it to the tank, and it fines out the wine. And finds out those materials that we don't want. And that's the process called fining. And so those next steps are really improving and enhancing quality and making sure that the wine is stable for bottling. So after fining, we allow the wines to settle. So sometimes they're a little bit cloudy and then eventually they clear. And once they're clear, the first step is to rack the wine. When we have juice, as you recall, we took the juice off of the solids from the grapes themselves. For wine racking, we're actually taking the wine off of the final yeast cells and the bentonite and other fining agents that we might have added to help improve that stability. That racking process is really important, that we're super gentle, that we use the right pumps, that we use carbon dioxide to prevent oxygen from contact in the wine, because that'll reduce the quality. So there's a whole bunch of steps that we take in order to be as precise as possible with the racking process to separate the heavy solids from the wine to a more clear juice on the other side. After you've racked your wine, you have a clear, relatively clear liquid, we have to take it one step further. The final process before bottling, which is filtration. It's at this stage that we remove all of the solids, all of the microbes from the wine to make sure that the wine is absolutely stable and ready for bottling and ready for delivery to you on your table or at your door.